Afternoon, Mr. Matty.
Oh, hello, George.
Sorry about that, Mr. Walters. Look, it's just occurred to me, Mr. Matty probably sent your proofs to someone else by mistake. Yes, well, I'm afraid he has been doing some very odd things just recently. Anyway, not to worry, I'll send you another set. Yes, of course. Leave it with me. Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Matty. Am I glad to see you?
Hello, Molly. Any messages?
You must be joking. And your brother's waiting to see you.
Claude?
Yes, he arrived about half an hour ago.
But he's in Madrid. He's playing there tonight.
He's in your office. The concert's been cancelled.
Claude?
Hello, Peter. Hi.
I couldn't believe it when Molly said you were here. I thought you were in Madrid.
The concert was cancelled.
Why was that?
Oh, well, the conductor, an Italian called Enrico Maralta, was in some sort of trouble, and, well, the poor devil suddenly decided to commit suicide.
Oh, my. How dreadful.
Yes, it was a nasty business.
Anyway, it's good to see you. You look fine, in spite of everything. Where's your next recital?
Well, San Francisco, but not for 6 weeks, thank goodness.
It's quite a break.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to it. I haven't had a holiday, well, not a real holiday, for years.
I know. What are you going to do? Go down to the south of France?
Well, no, I rather fancy staying in England. Well, for part of the time, at any rate. I thought I might even hibernate on that boat of yours, if that's all right with you, of course.
Of course. Splendid idea.
You've lost weight since I saw you last.
Have I?
Yes.
Oh, I don't think so. Well, perhaps a couple of pounds.
Peter, I'm worried, very worried.
Worried? What about?
About you. When I telephoned you last Sunday morning, you sounded, well, vague and confused, almost unfriendly.
Unfriendly? My dear chap, you're talking absolute nonsense.
Apart from that, during the past 10 days, I must have received, well, a dozen letters from people, friends of ours, and they all tell exactly the same story. They say that you're bad-tempered and morose and quite obviously worried to death about something. Now, Peter, what's all this about? Look, I'm going to find out sooner or later, so you might just as well tell me now.
Well, you remember when I flew out to Geneva a few weeks ago to go to your concert?
Yes.
I don't suppose you remember what happened on the Monday?
On the Monday?
Yes.
I drove you to the airport.
That's right. You drove me to the airport. Here we are.
Thank you.
Not at all. Thank you. Looks delicious.
The man who saw you off at the airport, was that Claude Matty, the pianist?
Yes, it was.
I thought so. I thought I recognized him.
Yes, he was giving a concert last night in Geneva.
Yes, I know. I went to it.
Oh, did you enjoy it?
Very much. I think he's fabulous. First time I heard him play was in Washington about 7 years ago. I thought
yes.
he was fabulous then, and I still think so. Is he a friend of yours?
He's my brother.
Oh, really?
Really?
Well, I think he's absolutely...
Absolutely fabulous. I'll tell him.
Look, I'm Joy's used to hearing people say how wonderful he is.
Oh, but he still likes to hear
Excuse me,
it.
please?
Oh, yes, fine. Do you want some champagne?
Please.
Thank you.
Excuse me?
Are you a musician, Mr. Matty?
Peter. Peter Maddy. No. I'm a publisher. I publish books. Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Santé. As a matter of fact, that's one of our books you're reading.
Oh,
I gather you don't like it.
not very much. Do you go to many of your brother's concerts?
Not as many as I'd like to.
I imagine he travels a great deal.
Oh, he does. A great deal, all over the world. Are you, on holiday, Miss...
Oh, Mrs. Phyllis Toussaint.
Mrs. Dussal?
Yes. Well, it's a sort of a holiday. This is my first visit to England, although my husband was English. He emigrated to America in 1965. Norman, my husband, was killed in an accident about 6 months ago.
Oh, I am sorry. And you've never been to England?
No, I haven't. Well, Norman and I discussed it, and we made plans on more than one occasion, but I don't know, somehow it just never worked out.
Well, forgive me, but your accent there, I mean...
It's very English.
Well, yes.
Everybody tells me that. Actually, I was born in Boston. My mother is English, and my father was in the diplomatic service, and we were constantly meeting English people, so it probably has something to do with it.
Where are you staying? While you're in England?
Well, I shall be in London for 4 or 5 days, and then I'm probably going down to the Isle of Wight.
Really?
Oh, yes, a great friend of my late husband's lives at a place called Heatherdown.
I know Heatherdown.
You do?
Yes, I keep a boat on the island.
Oh.
Oh, you'll like it. Oh, Heatherdown's very nice.
Oh, so I've been told. Well, then, perhaps you know Sir Arnold.
Sir Arnold?
Sir Arnold Wyatt.
Sir Arnold Wyatt? No.
Well, he's
no,
a lawyer.
I don't think so.
Or at least he used to be. He retired a couple of years ago. Forest Gate Manor, Heatherdown.
No, doesn't ring a bell.
Well, we've never met, but I feel as if we're old friends. I've heard so much about him. You see, my husband's parents died when he was quite young, and Sir Arnold looked after him for a time. Norman was very fond of him.
Was your husband a lawyer?
Oh, no. He was a journalist. He was quite well known in America.
Norman Dussal. Yes, of course.
But you probably read about the accident. It was in all the papers.
Look, if you ever need any help, while you're in London, please don't hesitate to give me a ring.
That's very kind of you, Mr. Matty. I do appreciate it.
I was pretty busy during the next 24 hours. But I must confess, on more than one occasion I found myself thinking of the flight from Geneva and my meeting with Phyllis Toussaint. On the Wednesday, I'd arranged to take Max Lerner out to lunch. He's an old Fleet Street friend, and he'd just finished doing some research work for us.
Well, I'm glad you're pleased with my work. It was a pretty hard slog, I can tell you. Far more difficult than I expected.
Oh, yes, I know. And I know the next line, too. You're being grossly underpaid.
Well, you said it. Tell me, how did you get on in Geneva?
Oh, it was wonderfully. Claude was delighted with the reception. I must say, he had every reason to be.
And how is your brother?
Oh, he's fine, he's fine. Working far too hard, as usual. Do you know Claude?
Yes, I met him, 5, 6 years ago? If I remember rightly, I interviewed him for some magazine or other. But I doubt very much whether he remembers.
Got any good parcels lately? How are you liking London?
I think it's absolutely
Fabulous. What are you doing tonight?
No, I haven't thought about it.
Let's have dinner together. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock, all right?
Well, you bachelors certainly know how to take advantage of the traffic.
I left on the plane.
coming back from Geneva. Her name's Phyllis Dussal.
Dussal?
Yes.
Any relation to Norman Dussal?
Yes, she's his wife. Widow, I should say. Did you know him?
Well, not really. I met him once at a press conference. I think we only exchanged a couple of words. I didn't really care for him very much.
I know he was a journalist, but what exactly did he write?
He was a columnist. A sort of political gossip writer. Well, I suppose that's a bit unkind. He made quite a name for himself at one time. And the poor devil was drowned.
Drowned?
I was in Paris at the time of the accident. French papers were full of it.
Well, what happened exactly?
Well, Mrs. Dussal and her husband were on a trip to Europe, and they wanted to go to Corsica, so they caught the boat from Marseille. Apparently, it was a very rough passage, heavy seas, the lot. The poor devil just disappeared.
What do you mean, disappeared?
He fell overboard. The body was washed up several days later, and Phyllis, you said her name was?
Yes, that's right.
Well, she identified it.
What a terrible experience.
It was in more ways than one. There was a lot of gossip, talk of suicide, and several of the papers inferred there'd been a quarrel of some kind.
Had there been a quarrel?
Afraid so. His wife admitted it at the inquest. But fortunately for her, they brought in a verdict of accidental death. Personally, I don't think the row had anything to do with what happened. I think it was just one of those silly man and wife quarrels. If I remember rightly, it was something to do with a doll.
I had lunch with Max Lerner, and then I dropped in on one of our authors. One of our most loquacious authors, I might add. It was very nearly 4 o'clock when I arrived back at the office.
Hello, Molly.
There's been a call from New York. They're ringing back at 5.
Bully for New York.
The Lazenby contract's arrived. It's on your desk.
Splendid.
And a Mrs. Dussal telephoned.
Yes?
She says she's very sorry, but she can't see you this evening after all.
She can't see me.
That's right.
Was that all she said?
Yes, that's all.
Did she ask to speak to me?
No, she just left the message.
I was both disappointed and annoyed that my dinner date with Phyllis Dussal had been cancelled. And I couldn't help wondering why she'd cancelled it. At one point, I thought of telephoning her. Then an idea occurred to me. I made up my mind to drop in later that evening in the hope of seeing her. I arrived at the hotel at about 7:30. And to my surprise, just as I was paying off the taxi, Phyllis suddenly appeared. She was obviously saying goodbye to a friend of hers.
I'll pick you up tomorrow morning, honey, at about 11 o'clock.
Yes, all right, Linda.
Now, are you sure you won't have dinner with me this evening?
Absolutely sure. It's very kind of you, but I simply must have an early night.
All right, my dear, if that's what you want. You take good care of yourself now.
Good evening.
Oh, hello. Didn't you get my message?
Yes, I did, but,
This is a friend of mine, Mrs. Braithwaite, Mr. Matty.
Mr. Matty.
I'm very pleased to meet you, Mrs. Braithwaite.
Well, I guess I'd better run along now. It's been a lovely surprise bumping into you, Phyllis, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow morning.
Me too, Linda.
Goodbye, Mr. Matty. It's been so nice to have met you.
Goodbye.
I met Linda, Mrs. Braithwaite, in Switzerland.
Oh, yes.
We'd become quite friendly. I had no idea she was in London.
I see.
I'm sorry about tonight. I really have had a busy day.
It's all right. Don't worry.
I really have had a hectic time lately, and I just wanted an early night for a change.
Why not? How'd you like the Mini?
The Mini? Oh, the car. Very much. I love driving. I rented it. The car, I mean.
Yes, I rather thought you had.
Well, good night, Mr. Matty.
Look, you are having an early night. If we can't have dinner together, would you let me buy you a drink? Just a very small one. You can drink it very quickly. When are you going to Heatherdown?
Oh, at the weekend. I spoke to Sir Arnold this morning. I believe I told you about Sir Ronald White.
Yes, yes, you did.
Well, he sounded awfully nice on the phone, which I must say was quite a relief.
Why a relief?
Well, over the years I've heard so much about him that, suddenly I was nervous of meeting him. I don't know why, up until now I've been quite looking forward to it. Anyway, I'm sure he's very nice.
I'm sure he will be, too. Will you be staying down there?
Yes. Well, I think so. Sir Ronald's invited me down for the weekend, but, well, to be truthful, I haven't decided whether I shall stay with him or not. This morning, when you were in the taxi, you had a friend with you.
Oh, yes, Max Lerner. He's a journalist.
Max Lerner? I thought I recognized you. I just couldn't remember his name.
You know Max?
We've met a long time ago with my husband. He probably doesn't remember.
No, I don't think he does.
Did he mention anything about...
About what?
About the accident? About my husband?
Well, just that he was in Paris when it happened and that he'd read about it.
In the French newspapers?
Yes.
Did he tell you about the quarrel I had with my husband?
Well, I believe he mentioned it, yes.
Well, it was a stupid, ridiculous row. It was about a doll that Norman had bought in Marseille just before we left.
A doll?
Yes. I know it sounds odd, but Norman was crazy about dolls. He just couldn't resist them, especially if they wore costume. French dolls, German dolls, Swiss dolls. You name them, he bought them.
Well, I mean, people collect the most extraordinary things. Do you know, I have a friend, believe it or not, who collects shoehorns.
Shoehorns?
Yes, he's got over 200 of them. All shapes and sizes.
Oh, that is unusual.
He still uses his fingers to put on his shoes. I'm sorry, you were telling me about your husband.
Well, we'd bought a Land Rover in Paris, and we were taking it from Marseille to Corsica on the overnight boat. It was a dark, unpleasant night, and when we left Marseille, there was quite obviously a storm blowing up. We'd been at sea for about an hour, and I was searching for some seasick tablets when suddenly I remembered I hadn't packed the doll. I told Norman, and, well, to say the least, he was extremely annoyed. One thing led to another, and finally he completely lost his temper with me and went up on the deck. I stayed in the cabin for a while, and then I decided to join him. I couldn't find him. He wasn't on the deck. He wasn't in any of the public rooms. I searched the entire boat. I searched everywhere. I couldn't find him. And in the end, of course, I had to call for the captain. The next day, as you can imagine, I was completely and utterly bewildered. I didn't know what to do. Finally, I flew back to Marseille.
Must have been terrible.
Yes, it was. And the newspapers didn't exactly help.
Did you ever find the doll?
Well, after the accident, I forgot about it. It completely went out of my mind. Then, one night, I was staying in a small hotel off La Canebière, and one night I went for a walk. I came back, I went into the bathroom, and there it was.
The doll?
Yes. While I'd been out, someone had filled up the bath and left the doll floating on top of the water.
The same doll?
Yes. Or it looked like the same doll. Yes, it certainly looked like it. Then about an hour later, the police telephoned. They asked me to identify my husband's body. He'd been washed up on the beach.
But that's an incredible story. Did you tell the police what had happened? I mean, about the doll?
Well, yes. They simply took possession of it and said nothing. And whether the doll was important or not, I don't know. They didn't tell me and I didn't ask them. By that time, I just wanted to leave Marseille, to get home.
Yes, I can well understand that.
Well, now you know the whole story, Mr. Matty. Thank you for the drink.
The moment she left, I knew that no matter what happened, I simply had to see her again. So, the very next morning, as soon as I arrived at the office, I telephoned her. I told her that I was going to do some work on my boat over the weekend. And since it was berthed only about 12 miles from Heatherdown, why didn't she let me drive her down there? I expected her to refuse my offer, but much to my surprise, she didn't. On the contrary, she appeared grateful for the suggestion. I picked her up at the hotel early on Friday afternoon.
Mrs. Braithwaite.
Mr. Matty, hello. Phyllis is ready. She'll be with you in a minute.
Thank you.
I've just been saying goodbye to her. I'm flying back to the States this evening, and very sorry to be leaving, I might add.
Well, you must pay us another visit.
I most certainly will. I just love London. But then, of course, who doesn't? Oh, thank you. Nice to see you again. Have
And
a
you.
lovely weekend.
Thank
and
you.
look after Phyllis.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Hello? I'm sorry if I'm late.
I've only just arrived.
Well, do you think it'll keep fine?
I think so.
My goodness, what a lovely car.
It's all yours.
What do you mean?
Well, you said you were crazy about driving.
I am.
Well, I hate it, so go ahead, you drive.
Why is it the people who hate driving always have the loveliest cars? You serious?
Absolutely.
What happens if I smash into something?
I shall bail out. Do you want one? You're a very good driver.
For a woman?
You said it. What are your other accomplishments? Any good at boats?
No. I hardly know the difference between the bow and the stern.
I'm delighted to hear it. That means I can really shoot a line. That's right. Over there, the place I was telling you about.
Well, where's St. Catherine's Point?
St. Catherine's Point. Oh, that's round the other side.
Oh, near Ventnor.
That's right. You've been doing your homework.
The Isle of Wight is 22 miles from east to west, 12 miles from north to south. It lies in Southampton water and is separated from the mainland by the Solent. I hope you're impressed, Mr. Matty.
I'm impressed. Well, what do you think of her?
I like it. First edition.
Frightfully original. One of our authors suggested it should be called Out of Print.
Well, I don't know much about boats, I'm afraid.
Right, then, let's have the first lesson. That's the bow, and that's the oh, no, wait a minute. No, that's the bow, and that's the stern, is it? What time did you say you'd get to Heatherdown?
Oh, 3:30, 4.
Fine. Well, I can show you around the boat, and then we'll drive over there.
Oh, Peter, there's no need for you to do that. I can easily pick up a cab.
Nonsense. If you think I'm going to let you... Just a minute. I know what you can do. You can borrow the car.
Oh, I couldn't.
Well, why not? It's a splendid idea. I mean, that way I'm bound to see you again, because you'll have to drive it back. Seriously, though, I mean, it's a very good suggestion. Just supposing you don't like this Sir Arnold character.
I'm sure I will.
Well, I'm sure you will, too, but just supposing you don't. Then all you've got to do is tell them about your friends in Bournemouth. Jump in the car and come straight back here.
What friends in Bournemouth?
Oh, such old friends. They'd be terribly upset if you decided to stay anywhere else.
You sound very experienced at this sort of thing, Mr. Matty.
Oh, but I am. I've got girlfriends all over the place. After we've been down below, I'll take you around the corner and introduce you to one of them.
Mr. Matty, you down here
Mrs.
again, then?
Smith. That's right. I've got some odd jobs to do in the boat. How are you?
Fine, thanks. Well, you've got some nice weather for it.
Well, it makes a change, doesn't it? This is a friend of mine, Mrs. Dussal.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
She's just on her way over to see some friends in Heatherdown. I suggested she phone here this evening and leave a message for me. Is that convenient?
Yes, of course. I'll give you the number.
Mrs. Frinton is indispensable.
Thank you. 983867.
That's right. Don't worry. I'll see he gets the message.
All right, it'll probably be about 6 o'clock when I phone.
I'll be here.
She took my car and left for Heatherdown, as arranged. Feeling distinctly pleased with the way things had turned out, I went back to the boat and did 1 or 2 odd jobs. At about 6:10, I decided not to wait for Mrs. Frinton, but to stroll down to the post office. The post office was closed, of course, but as you know, Mrs. Frinton lives on the premises. She said Phyllis hadn't telephoned, but she assured me that the moment there was a message, she would deliver it to the boat. I sat on deck that evening just waiting for Mrs. Frinton to turn up. But she didn't. She didn't for the very good reason that Phyllis hadn't contacted her. Finally, I came to the conclusion that Sir Arnold had prevailed upon Phyllis to stay the night, and that somehow she just hadn't been able to telephone. I made up my mind that if I didn't receive a message from her by 11 o'clock the next morning, I'd telephone her myself.
Good morning, Mr. Matty.
Good morning.
No message yet, I'm afraid, from that friend of yours.
Let's see. Do you think I could see your local directory?
Yes, of course. Here we are. Heatherdown you wanted, wasn't it?
Yes, thank you.
Phyllis?
Good morning. Is this your boat, sir?
Yes, it is.
Then you're Mr. Matty.
That's right.
And I take it that's your car over there, sir?
Yes. Look, what's happened? What's all this about?
Was your car stolen, sir?
No, of course it wasn't stolen. If it had been, I would have reported it. I lent it to a friend of mine. Look, will you please tell me what you're doing with my car? Please return this car to Mr. Peter Matty, care of First Edition White Marina.
That was on the windscreen. We found the car in a private lane leading to a farm at Landon Cross.
Landon Cross?
About 1.5 miles from Heatherdown. You say you lent your car to a friend, sir?
Yes, she was visiting someone at Heatherdown.
Yes, well, it's a very nice car, sir. I'd be a bit careful about who I lent it to in future. Oh, your friend went off with the key, sir. We had the devil of a job finding another one. Have you got a spare?
Yes, I have.
Well, you might as well hang on to this one, sir. It's of no further use to us.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for delivering the car.
Pleasure to drive it, sir. Wish it was mine.
I just didn't know what to make of this new development. Obviously, Phyllis must have had second thoughts about returning to the boat, but even so, why didn't she simply telephone Mrs. Frinton and arrange for me to pick up the car? Frankly, Claude, I was bewildered. I just could not understand it. I began to wonder if I'd unwittingly offended her in some way or other. Finally, I decided that the only thing to do was to visit Forest Gate Manor in the hope that Sir Arnold, or perhaps Phyllis herself, might be able to throw some light on the mystery.
Good morning.
Yes? What is it?
Do you think I could have a word with Sir Arnold, please?
Have you an appointment?
No, I'm afraid I haven't. My name is Matty. Peter Matty.
Just a moment, please.
Hello. What's your name?
Sir Arnold will see you.
Oh.
Please come this way.
Thank you.
Mr. Matty?
Yes.
I'm Sir Arnold Wyatt.
How do you do?
How do you do? What can I do for you?
I'm a friend of Phyllis Dusal's. I expect you mentioned my name to you yesterday afternoon. I lent Mrs. Dusal my car. And I was just wondering why she abandoned it.
Mrs. Dusal?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid there's some mistake. I don't know anyone of that name.
But she came here yesterday afternoon. You invited her for the weekend.
I did?
Well, didn't you?
I've never even heard of Mrs. Dusal. Now, come along, come and sit down, please. And tell me what this is about.
Well, I mean, I've told you it's about Mrs. Dusal.
Yes, you've already said that.
She married a friend of yours, a very, very close friend.
Friend of mine?
Norman Dusal.
I'm sorry.
Well, look, you must have heard of Norman Dusal. He was a journalist. He emigrated to America.
I'm sorry, I haven't heard of any of these people. And if you'll forgive me, I haven't heard of you either. Now, do please sit down. Try and explain this to me and who you are exactly.
My name is Matty. Peter Matty.
Yes.
And if you haven't heard of me, you've certainly heard of my brother.
Claude Matty. Claude Matty's your brother?
Yes.
Oh, but I've been an admirer of his for years. I cannot tell you the pleasure he's given me. Oh, yes, Matty Publications, of course. Do forgive me if I was a little abrupt just now, but I was so bewildered by what you were telling me and about this Mrs. Dusal. What made you think that she was a friend of mine?
Well, I met her on a plane, coming back from Geneva. She told me it was her first visit to England, and she said that she was very much looking forward to meeting you. She said you were a close friend, a very dear friend of her late husband's.
Really, this is absolute nonsense. I've never even heard... All right, no, go on, please.
Well, I have a boat near here, and, well, I was coming down for the weekend, so I suggested that perhaps she might like to drive down with me. Well, that's it, really. Except that I lent her my car to drive over here.
Well, when was this?
Yesterday afternoon. The car was returned to me early this morning.
By Mrs. Dusal?
By the police. Apparently it had been abandoned in a deserted lane not far from here.
Well, I just don't understand this. Now, you say that you met her coming back from Geneva?
Yes, I'd been to a recital given by my brother.
Ah. And you got friendly with her?
Well, yes, I suppose you could put it that way.
Well, did she, do forgive my asking, did she try and borrow money from you?
Good heavens, no, she wouldn't even let me take her out to dinner.
Well, this is simply beyond me. I don't know what to say to you. What can this woman have been up to?
Oh, my apologies for troubling you, Sir Arnold. I've taken up quite enough of your time already.
Not at all, not at all. Now, look here. If your brother ever finds himself in this part of the world, do tell him I really would be delighted to make his acquaintance.
I said goodbye to Sir Arnold and returned to the boat. As I drove down the drive towards the main road, I suddenly saw the little girl again.
I stayed on the boat for about 10 days in the hope that she'd contact me, or at least get in touch with Mrs. Frinton. But she didn't. In the end, desperately unhappy, I came back to London. All this happened over 3 weeks ago. And I've been desperately unhappy ever since.
Well, the only thing I can suggest is try and forget the whole episode. But, well, I know that doesn't help very much, I'm afraid.
Anyway, when do you propose going down to the boat?
Well, this evening.
This evening?
Yes, if that's all right with you, of course.
Of course.
I know what'll happen if I spend the night in town. Phone will start ringing. I'll get involved. I won't have a minute to myself.
I'm sure you're right. Listen, I'll join you on Saturday, or Friday night if possible.
I'm going down to the boat at the weekend. I'll give you a ring when I get back, all right?
Yeah, okay, fine. Oh, and thanks for the dinner and the cheque. My ex-wives will be delighted.
Good night, Max.
Love Letters Written is a song, by Victor Young some good few years ago. And that was unmistakably the Ray Conniff sound on Radio 2's Music to Midnight. Let's see now, what do you have on your face when you're reading those love letters anyway? Well, maybe the look of love.
Mr. Matty.
Yes?
Could you spare a few moments, please, sir? My name is Seaton, Detective Inspector Seaton.
Come in. Come in, Inspector.
Thank you. I understand you have a Jaguar, sir.
Yes.
Registration number LDU 851P.
Yes, that's right.
Then I imagine that these must be yours, sir. They've got your car number on.
Yes, they are. Well, where did you find them?
Did you lose them, sir?
No, I gave them to someone. Where did you find them?
A woman was picked out of the Thames near Deptford earlier this afternoon, and those keys were in her possession.
You mean she's dead?
Yes, she was shot and her body dumped in the river.
I think you will find her name is Dussal. About 3 weeks ago, she borrowed my car and forgot to return the keys.
No, sir, we've established who she is. We were just wondering if by any chance you could add anything further to our information. Her name was Braithwaite. Linda Braithwaite. She was an American.
Yes, Mrs. Cassidy. Why, Mr. Matty.
Good afternoon. I hope I'm not disturbing you.
Not at all, not at all. Come along in. Thank you, Mrs. Cassidy. There we are. Well, did you find the lady you were looking for?
No, I'm afraid I didn't.
No, well, I was talking to Mrs. Cassidy, my housekeeper, about it after you left, and we really couldn't make out who she could have been. It's an extraordinary story.
Sir Ronald, the last time I was here, I noticed a little girl standing on the lawn.
Yes. That's Sarah. It's my granddaughter.
Well, she was holding a doll in her arms, a big sort of rag doll.
Yes, I dare say I know the one you mean.
Has she by any chance lost it?
No, I don't think
because
so.
If she has,
I think I've found it.
Oh. Oh, yes, I think that is hers. Oh, where did you find it? On the drive?
No, it was in my flat. Someone left it there last night.
In your... What? But why on earth should anyone do that?
I can't imagine why. I simply went into the bathroom before going to bed. There it was.
Wait a minute. Last night you say, but I think I saw Sarah playing with her doll this morning.
Oh, well, in that case, perhaps we're both mistaken and this isn't the same doll.
Well, I don't know. It's extremely like it. I think it is Sarah's. Just excuse me. I'll have a word with my housekeeper. Oh. Mrs. Cassidy, would you send Sarah along to the library, please? Yes, straight away. Thank you.
Does your granddaughter live in Heatherdown?
She lives here with me, Mr. Matty. Her parents are dead.
Oh, I didn't realize.
No, of course not. Why should you? No, my daughter and her husband were both killed in a plane crash.
Oh, I am sorry.
You know, this doll, if it's the one we think it is, arrived for Sarah on the very day of the accident. You see, it was Sarah's birthday, and her father, my son-in-law, sent it to her from Vienna.
Must be a great responsibility, looking after a little girl.
Yes, indeed it is, and I'm not getting any younger, I'm afraid. But she's a delightful child. Unfortunately, Mrs. Cassidy is devoted to her. You probably read about the accident. The plane crashed near Innsbruck just after takeoff. I was very devoted to my daughter. She was an only child. Come in, Sarah, darling. We appear to be mistaken, Mr. Matty.
I'm sorry about the meal.
Oh, not to worry.
Well, we're going to Heatherdown tomorrow and do some shopping. All right?
Thank you. You know, I still don't understand why you didn't tell the inspector about the doll.
Well, I didn't tell him for the simple reason that I thought I knew who it belonged to. Anyway, it's such a complicated story, I didn't think he'd believe me.
Yes. But the thing I find, well, very puzzling is the fact that you found the doll, well, a doll, under almost exactly the same circumstances as Phyllis DeSalle.
Yes, I know.
Have you examined the doll?
What do you mean?
Well, have you looked inside it?
Well, of course not. Why?
Well, don't you think it might be a good idea if you did?
You mean you think there might be something hidden inside it?
It's possible. I mean, if there is, it could explain a great deal.
Well, we shall soon find out. Now, let's see. Oh. Looks as if I'm going to need a sharp knife.
I'll get one from the drawer.
Oh, could you bring the breadboard as well?
Yep. That should do the trick.
Thanks.
Breadboard.
Right.
There's nothing here, I'm afraid.
No. Just a minute, just a minute. No, it's nothing. No, not a thing.
Listen. Someone coming.
Anybody at home?
It's Mrs. Frinton. Come on down, Mrs. Frinton.
I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Matty.
That's all right. What can we do for you? Oh, you've met my brother Claude, haven't you?
Oh, yes, of course. Good evening, sir. I heard you were down here. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, Mrs. Frinton. You're looking very well.
Oh, I'm not so bad, sir, all things considering. There's been a message for you, sir. That friend of yours has telephoned at last.
You don't mean Mrs. Dussal?
Well, she didn't give her name, but I'm quite sure it's the person you've been expecting. She wants you to ring her back. I've got the number here. Oh, Lord, now what on earth have I done? Oh, yes, here we are.
Heatherdown 8064.
That's right.
Did she say anything else?
Well, she asked me if you were staying down here, and I said that I wasn't certain, but I was quite sure you were coming back because your brother was already here.
Claude, I'll be back in 10 minutes. Come on, Mrs. Frinton. I want to use your phone. Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Could I speak to Mrs. Dussal, please?
I beg your pardon?
Is that Heatherdown 8064?
Yes.
Or could I speak to Mrs. Dussal, please?
I think you've got the wrong number.
Heatherdown 8064.
That's right. Who is it speaking?
My name is Matty. Peter Matty. Mrs. Dussal's a friend of mine, and she asked me to ring her. Hello?
Will you hold on, please? This is Ronald Ward speaking. Can I help you?
Sir Arnold?
Yes. Has something happened, Mr. Matty? My housekeeper seems a little confused.
Well, I got this message to ring your number.
Well, there must be some mistake. I left no message for you. Are you sure you got the right number?
Well, I think so.
Well, who is it you wanted to speak to?
Mrs. Dussal.
Mrs. Dussal.
She telephoned a friend of mine and asked me to ring her back.
At this number, Heatherdown 8064.
Yes.
Mr. Matty, either your friend got hold of the wrong number, or someone is quite deliberately trying to make a fool out of you. Frankly, in view of what's happened, I'm inclined to think the latter.
Sorry. It took longer than I thought.
That's all right. Do you feel like a coffee?
Yes, why not? I'll join you inside. I've just got to go and get some beer.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I was just admiring your display.
Oh, thank you, sir. That's very kind of you. It's our anniversary exhibition. We've been established 30 years next month.
Oh.
Can I assist you in any way?
Yes, perhaps you can. A friend of mine is getting married very shortly, and he's asked me to arrange the photographs.
Is it a local wedding, sir?
Yes, I suppose you could say it was local. It's God's Hill.
Oh, well, that's well within our area. We'd be delighted to help you, sir. Perhaps you'd like to take a look at this brochure.
Oh, thank you.
That should tell you everything you need to know, which is mainly the price, I imagine.
Well, I don't think my friend's very worried about the price, as long as the photographs are what he wants.
Well, I don't think you need worry about that, sir.
I was particularly interested in the wedding group in the centre of the window.
Oh, yes, that's a wedding we covered in, when was it? Let me think now. July, yes. Rob Milton, chairman of the local council. Dreadful day. Rained solidly the whole time. You'd never think so from looking at the photograph, would you?
No, you certainly wouldn't. Do I recognise that girl? I seem to have seen her somewhere before.
Yes, well, you may have done so, but not recently, I'm afraid. She and her husband were killed in an air crash a couple of years ago. Terrible business, dreadfully sad. She was Sir Arnold Wyatt's daughter.